Shadows within shadows. In the small town of Everwood, tales of spirits and ghostly occurrences had been passed down for generations. The townsfolk spoke of a vengeful entity known as the Shadow Wraith that lurked in the darkness, feeding on fear and consuming the souls of those who ventured too close. No one had seen the Shadow Wraith and lived to tell the tale. The story begins with 5 friends who gathered to celebrate their high school reunion. Lisa, a stubborn and daring woman. Emily, a shy and introverted woman. Dan, a naive and optimistic man. Tom, a skeptical and logical man. Marcus, a thrill-seeker who reveled in risk-taking. After hours of reminiscing and sharing stories, Marcus brought up the legend of the Shadow Wraith. He suggested they visit the old, abandoned sawmill on the edge of town. A place long rumoured to be haunted. Lisa quickly agreed, her stubborn nature refusing to admit any fear. Tom laughed off the idea, believing it to be childish, while Emily and Dan hesitantly agreed to go along with the group. As night fell, the 5 friends gathered their flashlights and made their way through the dense woods toward the sawmill. The forest was eerily quiet, with only the sound of leaves crunching beneath their feet. Shadows loomed everywhere, stretching across the trees like long fingers. Inside the sawmill, the air was thick with dust and decay. Rusted machinery and broken beams lay strewn about, creating a labyrinth of hazards. Lisa took the lead, guiding the group deeper into the darkness. Emily stuck close to Dan, her eyes darting nervously at every creak and groan. Tom, skeptical but curious, scanned the area with his flashlight, confident that there was nothing to fear. As they explored, Marcus suddenly vanished without a sound. The group called out for him, their voices echoing through the hollow building. There was no answer. Lisa, still stubborn and determined, insisted they search every corner of the sawmill. Tom's skepticism faltered, and even he couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. They stumbled upon Marcus's flashlight, discarded on the floor. There was no sign of him, no struggle, no footprints. It was as if he had been swallowed by the darkness itself. The group huddled together, fear gripping them. Lisa refused to leave without finding Marcus, her stubbornness overriding her common sense. As they moved deeper into the sawmill, the shadows seemed to grow thicker and more oppressive. Emily swore she saw movement in the corners of her eyes, but when she turned, there was nothing. Dan tried to reassure her, but his voice quivered with fear. They entered a large chamber where the remnants of an ancient saw lay rusting. Lisa's flashlight flickered, then died. She banged it against her palm, but it wouldn't turn back on. The others' flashlights followed suit, one by one, plunging them into complete darkness. Panic set in. Emily screamed as something brushed against her leg, and Dan grabbed her hand to keep her calm. Tom felt a cold breath on the back of his neck and spun around, but there was nothing there. Lisa, stubborn as ever, refused to give in to fear. She urged the group to stick together and keep moving, but the darkness seemed to close in on them. The air grew colder, and the sound of whispered voices filled the chamber. It was as if the shadows themselves were speaking. Then, one by one, the group began to disappear. First TA, then Dan, then Emily. Each time, a shadow would slide across the floor, coiling around them like a serpent, and they would vanish without a trace. Lisa was left alone, her heart racing, her breath shallow. The whispered voices grew louder, hissing with malice and hunger. Lisa's stubbornness melted into terror as she realized she was facing the Shadow Wraith, the spirit that killed from the shadows. She ran blindly through the sawmill, her footsteps echoing in the darkness. The whispers grew louder, mocking her, taunting her. And then, just as she thought she had found the exit, a shadow wrapped around her ankles, pulling her down into the darkness. The whispers stopped, and the sawmill fell silent once more. The Shadow Wraith had claimed its victims, and Everwood would have new stories to tell. The 5 friends were never seen again, their disappearance becoming yet another legend in the town's dark history. The sawmill was sealed, its doors locked, but the whispers still echoed in the night, a warning to those who dared to venture in.